Hello, welcome to Senior Savvy. I'm Jane Wells, your host for today's show. Senior Savvy is brought to you by the Oshkosh Senior Center, where it's our mission to enrich the quality of life for adults ages 50 and older. And as we age, many things happen. Some of them are expected and some of them are unexpected. And so today we're going to talk about roles and a role that we might end up playing as we age or play for somebody else who is aging. So today I would like to welcome to my show Cindy Pischke. Hello, Cindy.
Hi, Jane.
And Cindy is from the ADRC, and she's going to talk about a very special event that's coming up, and we really want people to know about this and hear about this. But first, Cindy, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Well, Jane, you've known me for a little while.
I have, indeed.
I've been a social worker with the Winnebago County for 38 years, a long time. It's hard to believe sometimes. And since 2010, I've been a social worker with the Aging and Disability Resource Center, the ADRC, which was developed to give resources to the community to help with services in the home, with caregiving, with just whatever a person might need. And so that's been something that I've been doing. I've also have two elderly parents who I've been put into the role of being a caregiver for. So I've gotten to experience that personally as well as professionally.
Right, so you understand some of the challenges.
Yeah.
I do just kind of want to go back because I did whip out ADRC quite quickly. And so that is the Aging
and Disability Resource Center. Yeah.
So that is really the very first line of if you have questions, if you have a parent who has a need, that's who you call, and then they get you pointed in the direction, or you get us pointed in the direction that we need to be going.
Right.
And it's a wonderful, wonderful service that this community has. So thank you for all of the work you and your coworkers do there, because it isn't easy to navigate all of this, is it, Cindy?
It isn't, and I think I shared with you previously that even being a social worker in the ADRC and having two elderly parents, that all of a sudden you have to start being an advocate for. They're no longer your parent, you're their advocate, and you're their caregiver.
Right.
And so it's really difficult, and even knowing all the resources, it's been hard.
Sure, sure.
You have to deal with a lot.
Right. So what we want to tell people about is a conference that's coming up. So why don't you share a little bit about the conference?
Well, the ADRC, along with Lakeshore Manor and Captel, decided to have what's called a Fearless Caregiver Support Conference in Oshkosh. It's going to be on April 20th, and it'll run from 11 to 3 at the Sunnyview Expo Center. And this is actually free to any caregiver. So, as well as lunch is going to be provided. So,
free food, seminars.
Yes. We're having a speaker. His name is Gary Barge, and he puts on these Fearless Caregiver Support Conferences all over the South mainly. But I became aware of him because I subscribed to his newsletter, which is caregiver.com. And that provided daily support kind of messages for caregivers, information, and so I thought, why not bring him to the Midwest?
Right.
And so here he is coming. He's going to bring a panel of experts, and the day, which will be about 4 hours with the lunch included, will be a chance for caregivers to get support, to get answers, questions answered about what they have questions about, because you run into a lot of questions as a caregiver.
I'm sure you do. So let's talk about that, because I'm just taking care of mom and dad. I'm not a caregiver. I'm just so let's talk a little bit about who exactly is a caregiver, or what does that mean?
When you're taking care of mom and dad, and maybe you're not living with them, providing hands-on care, but you're looking out for their medical care with their doctor, that makes you a caregiver. Or let's say you have to arrange for some home services for them, that makes you a caregiver. So caregiver isn't always just direct support. It might also be that you're just an advocate for them, you're looking out for them, you're trying to get resources for them.
Taking care of my husband, or a spouse, or even a neighbor, right?
Looking out for anybody that might have a disability or be elderly and need some help. That would make you a caregiver.
And why it is so important for us to identify who exactly is in those caregiving roles is because we know that people who are in caregiving roles have a lot of struggles and a lot of stress. and it ends up impacting their life significantly.
Mhm.
So let's just talk about some of the struggles that caregivers experience.
Well, I know personally
Yes.
one of my struggles, one of the biggest struggles, and I really didn't think that that would be such a big struggle, but it really was dealing with medical issues for my parents. First of all, trying to get my parents to accept me going to the doctor with them so we could remember what the doctor was telling them, but then also trying to get them appropriate care. Sometimes the medical profession would look at my parents who are in their 80s and say, well, they're old, what do you want? And I'd say, I want them properly diagnosed, I want them treated, I want them to have a good quality of life. It can be very stressful, even from somebody who's in the field, who should know how it is. It was very stressful. And sometimes you feel like you just can't talk to anybody about it because all it sounds like is negative. And you know, you can only talk to your coworkers or your friends so much about all your struggles until they just get tired of hearing them from you. You know? So,
and that's just one aspect of the struggles. We know that other struggles are just, you know, the stress and being overwhelmed and physically challenging. You know, when you have a 75-year-old caring for their spouse and they're trying to lift them and assist them, it is physically taxing as well.
And they can't, and they need help, and yet they worry about their money. They worry about how someone coming in and seeing what's going on, and maybe they'll tell them they can't live there anymore. People fear going into nursing homes. They really do.
And then there's that wonderful thing called guilt that we tend to either heap on ourselves or feel I'm not doing, you know, enough. I'm not doing, you know, it right. You know, my spouse said, don't ever put me in a home.
Or people tell you, take some time for yourself as a caregiver. Well, how are you to do that when, you know, you feel guilty just even leaving someone for a day, you know, because you know that they need you so badly.
Stress also comes from, oftentimes there are difficult conversations that need to take place, whether it's with the person you're doing the caregiving for or with your family members, your siblings or other adult children. Some of those conversations are very hard to have, and it's very stressful, and you know, you're trying to take care of somebody and you're trying to make the right decisions and you're trying to navigate the medical situations. So that all is the difficult conversations are stressful, and then there's time and never enough of it in a day. So caregiving can be very isolating as well.
Yes, it can.
And people see their social life go from live and vibrant to nothing. So these are just some of the stresses that caregivers experience, and really what this conference is all about is helping them to deal with some of those stresses.
Exactly.
And
getting
them
some advice on what do you do? How do you approach your parent about you can't drive anymore because you're not safe? And that's a big loss of independence for an older adult, you know, is to not be able to drive. And how do you get your parent to look at you as an adult versus that little kid that you always were to them, you know, and
kind
just
of flip roles a little bit sometimes, Exactly. So tell us who's all going to benefit from attending the conference.
I think, you know, if you're a child of an elderly parent, if you're a spouse, if you're a neighbor, if you're a parent of a disabled child, all of those are going to be there, you know, to offer support to each other, to gain some tips about what it is that, you know, you can do about certain situations, how to approach them. Gary's a wonderful advocate for caregivers and provides a wealth of information, so it's exciting to hear.
Well, and I would say it's even for people who maybe not right now are in a caregiving role, but they can see it coming on the horizon, Wouldn't it be great to have a little bit of knowledge ahead of time? So that you aren't necessarily, so that you hit the ground running versus, you know, trying to play catch up a little bit. And
so you don't have to say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
I know, how is this all going to work? Well, also one of the biggest obstacles I would think for somebody attending this, if they are in the caregiving role, is that sounds great. Thanks for the conference. What am I going to do with the person that I caregive for?
Well, and the ADRC has an answer to that.
Yes.
We have some funding through the federal government called National Family Caregiver Support Funding, and it allows us to provide respite to people. There's no asset test to this, so we don't have to know how much money do you make or what is that person's income. we can just provide some respite, and we've gotten approval to be able to provide it for this. So if they call ahead and they say, I need respite so I can attend your conference, we'll get that arranged for them.
So who are they going to call and what number?
Well, I think we have my number up on there, and that's perfectly fine, and we can direct them to that. My phone number is 920-236-4661. I work for the ADRC. I'm involved in this conference along with a couple of my colleagues, and so we'll be glad to direct them to the right person for
And that is just a wonderful thing that you guys are providing, because really that is a huge obstacle as to whether or not somebody can attend. It's to who's going to look after their loved one while they go to this conference. So again, Cindy, they would just call your number, and if you could just repeat your number again.
My number is 920-236-4661.
And they just need to say, I would like to arrange for respite so I can attend the caregiver conference, which is wonderful.
And we'll be glad to do it for them, because we really think this is going to be a good value for caregivers. In addition to, something we didn't mention is that there's going to be about 50 to 60 vendors, people who have businesses that support caregiving. So home care services, assisted living, they're going to be available for people to have one-on-one contact, to be able to explore what options are out there. So one of the things we do at the ADRC is we, have people call in and we tell them about resources. They're going to be able to see that resource in person, talk to them personally about their situation.
Which is wonderful. So let's just go back again. So the conference is called the Fearless Caregiver and Support Conference, and it is going to be on April 20th, and it will be from 11 to 3.
Correct.
Ideally, the person can come for that entire time, right? You're providing respite for that entire time frame. That way they'll get the opportunity to not only visit the vendors, but then to also hear the keynote and the kind of the breakout sessions that deal with various topics, correct? Yes, that's wonderful. And just tell us again, so how much does it cost for me to come to this conference?
Zero.
Zero. That is an awesome thing. And how much does it cost for me to have respite?
Nothing, because you just have to arrange it through us. So, it's really a good support, and it's cost nothing to come other than your time. And time is valuable when you're a caregiver, that's for sure. But I think what you'll walk away from, not only from the contact from the vendors, but to hear the support that's given and the advice that's given throughout the day, I think it'll be invaluable and a good use of your time.
I think so too. So tell me how the day is laid out. So what if I don't get there right at 11? Am I going to be, is everybody going to know something I don't know because they've been there right at 11? Or is it structured? Is it a little loose? Or?
I think what Gary has told us is that he likes to have questions from the audience. So what are you struggling with? And then advice sometimes comes from the audience too. I mean, I may have dealt with my dad and not driving anymore, and you may be struggling with that. And so I may be able to offer you a piece of advice about how I handled that may or may not work for you.
And that's a wonderful aspect too, is that you will be with a group of people who are in a similar situation, because caregiving can be so isolating. And Mary and Bob, who are still 100% active, don't quite understand all of the struggles that you have. But you and I sitting down going, oh man, I'm trying to work, I have my own family, and I'm caring for my mom and dad, and just to be able to share that with somebody else who is in the exact same place that I'm at is what a wonderful resource, and maybe some new friendships can develop out of it.
Exactly. And you're not going to be a burden to somebody when you're there talking about your struggles, where again, sometimes although friends mean well and colleagues mean well, they don't always want to hear all the troubles that you're having. They want to be upbeat and positive, and that's great, but sometimes you just need to talk in plain English about what's going on in your life and how hard it is.
So we talked about that they need to call to reserve for respite, but you would also like them to call to reserve or to register for the conference, right? Because when you're trying to plan a lunch, you
need to know how many people
are coming. Yes. So is that contact information different if they're calling to register for the conference?
It is. They would be calling caregiver.com. I think that they're flashing that on the screen for us as well, but the number is 877-829-2734. And that's a toll-free number. You're actually going to be calling caregiver.com in Florida, where the weather's really nice. And reserve your seat. It's, again, free, so all we're doing is just asking, tell us that you're coming for lunch so we know.
Right, right. And is there a deadline that they have to register by?
I think we can take things pretty late into
Okay.
the time, probably like,
Okay.
first week in April.
Right.
If they can.
But, it'd be wonderful if people could definitely arrange for the respite ahead of time, I'm sure, so that you can do some planning on your
Right,
end.
right.
And if you're calling to arrange for the respite, just call right away to register,
Sure.
and then it's all done, and you're set to go, and
Yep.
that gives you guys some numbers ahead of time,
Right.
so you know how to plan best on your end of it.
Right.
So, give me an idea, a little bit about some of the vendors who you anticipate being there.
Well, I think we'll have a lot of home care services. So, agencies that provide care in the home. Maybe that would be just, light housekeeping. It might depends on what mom and dad might need.
Sure, sure.
Sometimes it's light housekeeping. Sometimes it's medication monitoring. Those type of agencies are going to be there, as well as what if mom and dad just can't stay home anymore?
Right.
So now they might need an assisted living, and I think a number of the assisted livings we've heard from already are going to be there. Be able to provide you some information about what is it like to live in one of their facilities, and how much does it cost, and
Right.
all of those kind of things.
Right.
Now the ADRC will also provide you that information, and that's one of the benefits that I think we have, is that we are a county agency, so we're not given a commission by a certain agency to promote
Right.
them. We
Right.
try to give you an unbiased
Right.
view of what's
Right.
available out there.
I would imagine you also might have a vendor that can show you some things to use in your home to adapt different things
Sure.
to make them, safer, and so that people can stay longer in their home. There are some adaptive equipment things out there that are wonderful to help support staying in the home longer.
I just had a call from a lady this morning, and she said that she had investigated getting her walk-in shower put into her house, and it was going to be like $5,000 or $6,000 to do that, which she was going, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
Right.
And I said, well, what about a tub transfer bench? And I explained to her what that was.
Sure.
She never knew about that. So again, it's just those kind of little pieces of information that
Right.
people don't know,
Right.
that are
Exactly.
really helpful to them.
Right.
So we're hoping to have vendors that will have adaptive equipment like that too. That will be able to provide that.
Right. Well, what a great conference for the ADRC to sponsor and put on, and how thoughtful, because, like we talked about, there are really an awful lot of struggles in caregiving, whether it is for an aging parent, whether it is for a child with disabilities. No matter what, that role shifts everything in your life.
It does.
It really does.
It does.
And it has impact in many different areas. So what a great thing that there's a place that people can go where you've removed the obstacle of who's going to take care of the person I'm caregiving for, and it's free, so there's no financial outlay or whatever. You have a wonderful keynote speaker coming in, and all I have to do is call and register, and I'm there for free, and I get lunch for free, and then all the different resources, and hopefully a connection with other people who are in the exact same role that I'm in. What a great day.
We hope it's going to be a good day for everybody. And one of the things we noticed is that there wasn't this kind of thing in the Oshkosh area. You'd find it in Green Bay, you'd find it in Milwaukee, but you didn't find it right in this area. And so we really hope to provide that for people.
Sure. So, Cindy, why don't you, as we wrap up, tell us one more time the title of the conference, where it is, when it is, phone numbers to call, and things like that.
Okay. Fearless Caregiver Support Conference. It's going to be held April 20th. At the Sunnyview Expo.
Which is out on County Y,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, County Y. So the fairgrounds, I think, is what everybody knows it as. Phone number to register for the conference, and it's just a toll-free number, is 877-829-2734. And if you need respite, ADRC is going to be available to provide that through some special funding that we have available. And they can call my phone number, and we'll get them in the right spot. That's 920-236-4661.
Excellent. Thank you, Cindy, so much for coming on the show and talking about this, and sharing your own personal experiences and some of the challenges you've experienced, and representing ADRC and just putting on this conference in general. So thank you very much.
Well, we hope that everybody will come.
Yes, I hope so too.
We're looking forward to it.
Yes, it should be a great day.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, next up, we are going to be hearing from our UW Oshkosh kinesiology intern who has some great tips and little pointers about exercise for you. So stay tuned, but pay really close attention to this public service announcement that actually is coming up, because there are a lot of scams going on, and guess what? They target seniors, gal darn it. So please pay attention to the PSA, and we'll be back in a bit.
Granddad, it's me. An accident in Mexico. I'm in jail.
Jimmy, is that you?
Yeah, it's Jimmy. I need money for bail right now.
In jail?
You need to send money right now. Please don't tell anyone.
Scammers are tricky and can pretend to be anybody in any situation. They seem like the real deal. They play on your fears. The goal? To get you to act fast. Check out if they really are who they say they are, even if they sound like a loved one. Heard from an imposter? Report it at ftc.gov/imposters.
I hope you paid attention to the PSA, and if you have been a victim of a scam, please call the Oshkosh Police Department and talk with them over there. It happens. There's no need for embarrassment. There's no need to, try and not acknowledge it, because the scammers are very talented and very tricky, and we really need to know how much of that is going on in this area. So shifting gears now, I'm excited to welcome our UW Oshkosh kinesiology intern, Nick Pavick. Nick, hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for
Good.
coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so you have been at the Senior Center for
A full month.
full month.
Yeah, almost 6 weeks. Yeah.
And we are so thankful to have you there, because you have the can-do spirit. And Nick, can you do? You keep saying yes.
It's been awesome so far. It's been a really great experience. So I'm
Wonderful.
really enjoying it. Yeah.
So what the heck is kinesiology?
So that's a great question, and something that I get a lot. So kinesiology is the scientific study of the body and its movement.
Okay.
So I stress scientific so that people, when they view personal trainers, kind of think, kind of a jock type thing, and it's not really. It's a lot different than that. So
there really is science behind how we move
Of
and
course,
what we should
yeah.
be moving, and
and how often you should be doing things. Yeah. So what do people who study kinesiology do? We look for a better way to do the movements that we do on a daily basis, and how to make them more efficient. And so because it's scientifically driven, there's also a governing body behind it, and that's the American College of Sports Medicine.
Okay.
And so they kind of give us our guidelines, and then from that we can make kind of progressions and regressions for individuals. That way it's not so cookie cutter, and that we can do it so that it's most beneficial for individuals.
Right. So when we're talking about the science of movement and seniors, I think we all know that if our hip is bum,
Yeah.
we tend to walk differently because we're adjusting to that, and then
Yeah.
the next thing you know, something's going on with the knee.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because the body is a chain. So if something's out on one of those links,
Right.
it can kind of throw off the entire thing. So kind of instead of focusing on how to avoid making that pain, you kind of have to focus on bettering it through either going to a doctor,
Right.
or performing exercises to strengthen those muscles and the hip,
Right.
and things like that. So
Exercise. There's
Yeah.
that word again.
yeah, it's often dreaded.
And is there an age where you're too old to exercise?
Never. You're never too old to exercise.
Right.
So there are actually some really good guidelines given by the ACSM. And
Okay.
so for aerobic exercise, which is your cardiovascular
That's
exercise.
getting your heart pumping
Yep,
and
getting
your-
your heart pumping and sweating. So this is your running, your biking. If you're on a machine like that, it's kind of that repetitive motion
Okay.
that you're going to do for a long time.
Walking.
Yep, perfect. So there's kind of two ways that we look at this, and it's moderate and vigorous. So moderate exercise is where most people are going to want to start. That's going to be for 5 days a week, 30 minutes per session, and adding up to 150 total minutes. Now, a lot of people look at that and go, oh my gosh, 150
Exactly.
minutes, that
Right.
is so much time. But not if you spread it out, because if you think about it, you don't have to do it all at once. You can take breaks. So you could do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes
sure.
there, and kind of spread it throughout
Right.
the day and still have that health effect.
Even every time a commercial comes on, you can get up and do something.
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other thing is, when I say moderate, what does that mean? So moderate, you can probably keep a conversation going while you're moderately exercising. That would be
Okay.
if you're on the treadmill, you're working up a sweat, but you're still comfortable enough to keep talking. So, and then we have our vigorous. So vigorous is a little different. This is going to be for 3 days a week, and it's going to be 20 minutes instead of the 50 minutes that we said
Okay.
before. And so this is going to be 60 minutes for the entire week. And the difference between vigorous and moderate is you're no longer going to be able to sustain that conversation. You'll be able to say some things here and there, but you won't be able to keep it going constant.
Sure.
So
That's when you kind of get a little short of breath.
exactly, yeah, yep. And
All right. So we have about 2 minutes left. So
Yeah.
what other tips would you like to share with us?
So there's also some strength. You're going to want to do that 2 to 3 times per week, and you're going to want to focus on your major muscle groups. So what does that mean? That would be like your
Exactly.
back, your upper legs and lower legs, and you're going to want to work them in manners that you would in daily life. So for
Okay.
example, like standing up, a squat would be a perfect example of something you would do to work that standing up motion.
Okay.
And obviously there are progressions and regressions with that, but yeah. And you only want to do this 2 to 3 days a week, and you definitely want to give yourself a break between exercises. So
Why is that important? Why is it not? Why don't you lift weights every
Every
single
day?
day of the week? Yes.
your body needs that time to recover. It
Right.
needs it. If you put too much strain, it'll have a bad effect on your body, and you're going to feel it more and more, and so that's why you want to take that break and
All right.
relax a bit.
So we have 1 minute left. So
Yep.
what are your ultimate
Last-
tips?
Last thing is, whenever you're doing these exercises, you always want to stretch after.
Okay.
That's so important and something a lot of people forget. So just to run through everything that I said before, about 5 days a week of aerobic exercise, and if you need a break, take it. If you
Yep.
can't start at that 5, then only do 3 or 4,
Right.
or even 2.
Do what you can.
Do what you can. That's what's so important. Same with the strength, and really remember to stretch at the end. So whatever muscle group that you worked, find a stretch that works for that.
Right.
So,
And if you're getting cramps in your leg while you're walking,
yeah,
think about how much water you're consuming in a day, right?
that's so important. Take breaks while you're exercising. People
Yes.
just think that it needs to be straight. It's really important to take a break and to drink some water and just to relax for a little bit between.
We're laughing because I had a major muscle cramp while exercising, and I had to call Nick and say, "Come and help me."
Yeah.
It was terrible. So
It's weird how that can happen,
It
yeah.
is. Yes, exactly. So thank you so much for coming on,
Not a
and
problem.
we
It was
truly
great.
enjoy having you around the center. And we are going to tape a whole bunch of health tips or news from Nick,
Yeah.
and tag those on the end of Senior Savvy. So you're going to show some different ideas for exercising within the home that don't cost any money,
Yep.
and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it.
All right, super. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching Senior Savvy. Glad to have you with us. Come on down to the Senior Center and see what we have happening. You can look online at the City of Oshkosh website to catch our newsletter, and that will tell you everything we have going on. Thank you. See you again soon.